Hello, everybody.
Hello. It is I, Shae, and the Rindis.
And the Rindis.
And the Rindis.
It's like the Batman, but it's the Rindis.
Yes. But we are back for more of Shae's story show. Story show. And we are still reading the Windup Girl. I know we missed the last two, I think?
Yeah, I think 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
It's been a bit.
I had to go back and review and see where I left off. And where we left off in the Windup Girl. Anderson kind of did a bad and pointed out his secret girlfriend to the Shae Preya, who is the protector of the Child Queen, but who is also rumored to have some very, shall we say, sadistic desires. Where will this lead?
Nowhere good, I'm sure.
I mean, we'll find out.
Stay tuned.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun.
So, we are on chapter 28. Whoops. There we go. We found another. Kanya starts. It's Pi, standing at her doorway. Kanya rubs her face. She was sitting at her desk, trying to write another report, waiting for word from Ratana. And now drool soaks the back of her hand and her pen leaks everywhere. That's mood. Asleep and dreaming of JD, who simply sits and pokes fun at all her justifications. Are you still sleeping? Pi asks. Kanya rubs her face. What time is it? 2nd hour in the morning. The sun's been up for a while. Pi sits patiently for her to gather her wits. A pockmarked man who should be her senior, but who Kanya has overtaken. He is of the old guard, one who worshipped JD in his ways, and who remembers the Environment Ministry when it was not ridiculed, but feted. A good man. A man whose bribes are all known to Kanya. Pi may be corrupt, but she knows who owns which parts, and so she trusts him. We found another, he repeats. Kanya straightens. Who else knows? Pi shakes his head. You took it to Ratana? He nods. It wasn't tagged as a suspicious death. It took some effort to find. This is like looking for a silver minnow in the rice paddies. Not even tagged? Kanya sucks in her breath. Lets it out with an irritated hiss. They're all incompetent. No one remembers how it always comes. They forget so quickly. Pi nods easily, listening to his mistress rant. The pits and holes of his face stare back at her. Another worming disease. Kanya can't remember if it was a gene hack weevil that did it or a variation on Fae bacteria. All Pi says is, this makes 2, then? 3. Kanya pauses. A name. Did the man have a name? Pi shakes his head. They were careful. Kanya nods sourly. I want you to go around to the districts and see if anyone has reported any missing relatives. 3 people missing. Get photos taken. Pi shrugs. You have a better idea. Perhaps forensics will find something to link them, he suggests. Yes, fine. Do that as well. Where's Ratana? She has sent the body to the pits. She asks for you to meet her. Kanya grimaces. Of course. She tidies her papers and leads Pi to his futile searches. As she leaves the administrative building, she wonders what JD would do in this situation. For him, inspiration came easily. JD would stop in the middle of the road, struck suddenly by enlightenment, and then they would be off, running through the city, hunting for the source of contamination, and invariably the man would be right. It sickens Kanya to think that the kingdom must rely on her instead. I am bought, she thinks. I am paid for. I am bought. When she first arrived at the Environment Ministry as Akarat's mole, it was surprised to discover that the little privileges of the Environment Ministry were always enough. The weekly take from the street stalls to burn something other than expensive approved source of methane. The pleasure of a night patrol spent sleeping well. It was an easy existence. Even under JD, it was easy. And now, by ill luck, she must work. And the work is important. And she has had 2 masters for so long that she cannot remember which one should be ascendant. Someone else should have replaced you, JD. Someone worthy. The kingdom falls because we are not strong. We are not virtuous. We do not follow the Eightfold Path, and now the sickness comes again. And she is the one who must stand against them, like Faraz, but without the strength or moral compass. Kanya strides across the quads, nodding at other officers, scowling. JD, what is it in your comma that placed me second to you? That placed your life's work in my fickle hands? What joke did this? Was this Fionn, the Cheshire trickster spirit, happy to see more carrion and offal in the world? Happy to see our corpses piled high? Ahead, men wearing filter masks jump to attention as they spy her pushing open the gates to the crematory grounds. She has a mask issued, but leaves it dangling around her neck. It does no good for an officer to show fear, and she knows the mask will not save her. She places more faith in a Faraz amulet. The open dirt expanse of the pits lies before her, massive holes cut into the red earth, lined to keep out the seep of the water table that lies close below. With as poor as that country, and those masks do probably suck. But you should always wear your mask, people.
Always wear your mask.
Wet land, and yet the surface bakes in the heat. The dry season never ends. Will the monsoon even come this year? Will it save them or drown them? There are gamblers who bet on nothing else, changing the odds on the monsoon daily. But with the climate so much altered, even the Environment Ministry's own modeling computers are unsure of the monsoon from year to year. Ratana stands at the edge of the pit. Oily smoke roils up from the burning bodies below. Overhead, a few ravens and vultures circle. A dog has gotten into the compound and skulks along the walls, looking for scraps. How did that get in? Kanya asked. Ratana looks up and spies the dog. Nature finds a way, she observes dully. If we leave food, it will reach for it. You found another body? Same symptoms. Ratana's body is slumped, her shoulders bowed inward. Below them, the fire crackles. A vulture sweeps low. A uniformed officer fires a cannon, and the explosion sends the vulture screeching skyward again. It circles. Ratana closes her eyes briefly. Tears threaten at the corners of her eyes. She shakes her head, seeming to steel herself. Kanya watches, sadly, wondering if either of them will be alive at the end of this newest plague. We should warn everyone, Ratana says. Inform General Praksha. The palace as well. You're sure now? Ratana sighs. It was in a different hospital across the city, a street clinic. They assumed it was a yaba stick overdose. Pai found them by accident. A casual conversation on his way to Bangkok Mercy to look for evidence. By accident. Kanya shakes her head. He didn't tell me that. How many could there be out there? Hundreds already? Thousands? I don't know. The only good thing is that we haven't seen any sign that they themselves are contagious. Yet. You must go ask Jibu-sen for advice. He is the only one who knows what sort of monster we face. These are his children, coming to torment us. He will recognize them. I'm having the new samples prepared. Between the three, he will know. There's no other way. Our only other choice is to begin quarantining the city, and then the riots will begin, and there will be nothing left to save. Well, stuff's getting bad. Rice paddies sprawl in all directions, emerald green, bright and neon in the tropic sun. Kanya has been inside the sinkhole of Krungthep for so long that it's a relief to see this growing world. It makes her imagine that there is hope, that the rice grasses will not wilt red under some new variant of blister rust, that some engineered spore will not float over from Burma and take root. Flooded fields still grow, the dikes still hold, and His Royal Majesty King Rama XII's pumps still move water. Tattooed farmers make wise of respect as Kanya cycles past. By the stamps on their arms, most of them have already done corvée labor for the year. A few others are marked for the start of the rainy season when they will be required to come to the city and shore up its dikes for the deluge. Kanya has her own tattoos from her time on the countryside before Akarat's agents tasked her with the burrowing into the very heart of the Environment Ministry. After an hour of steady pedaling down raised causeways, the compound materializes. First the wires, then the men and their dogs, then the walls, topped with glass and razor wire, and high bamboo stakes. Kanya keeps to the road, avoiding trip patches. Technically, it is simply the home of a wealthy man, perched atop an artificial hill of concrete and expansion tower rubble. Given the loss of life over the last century, it is an impressive focusing of human labor for something so silly. When dikes need repairs, and fields need sowing, and wars need fighting, that a man was able to channel labor into the building of a hill, a rich man's retreat. It was originally Rama XII's, and officially it is still the property of the palace. From the vantage of a dirigible passing overhead, it is nothing. Just another compound, an extravagance for some branch of royalty, and yet a wall is a wall. A tiger pit is a tiger pit, and men with dogs look both ways. Kanya shows the guards her papers as mastiffs growl and lunge against their chains. The beasts are larger than any natural dog. Windups, hungry and deadly and well built for their work. They weigh twice what she does, all muscle and teeth. The horror of Jibu-sen's imagination brought to life. The guards unpattern encryptions with their hand-cranked code breakers. They wear the black livery of the Queen's Own and are frightening in their seriousness and efficiency. Finally, they wave her past their dogs, straining teeth. Kanya cycles toward the gate, her neck prickled with the knowledge that she can never ride as fast as those dogs can run. At the gates, another set of guards reconfirm her passes before guiding her inside to a tiled terrace and a blue jeweled swimming pool. A trio of ladyboys titter and smile from where they lounge in the shade of a banana tree. Kanya smiles in return. They are pretty. And if they love a farang, then they are only foolish. I am Kip, one of them says. The doctor is having his massage. She nods at the blue water. You can wait for him by the pool. The scent of the ocean is strong. Kanya walks to the edge of the terrace. Below her, waves lap and curl, scrubbing white across beach sands. A breeze pours over her, clean and fresh and astonishingly optimistic after the claustrophobic stink of Bangkok behind its seawalls. She takes a deep breath, enjoying the salt and wind. A butterfly flutters past and alights on the terrace railing, closes its jeweled wings, opens them gently, folding itself over and over again, bright in cobalt and gold and black. Kanya studies it, stricken by its beauty, the gaudy evidence of a world beyond her own. She wonders what hungers have driven it to fly to this alien mansion with its strange farang prisoner. Of all the things of beauty, here is one that cannot be denied. Nature has worked itself into a frenzy. Kanya leans close, studying it as it clings to the rail. An unwary hand might brush it and grind it into dust without ever realizing the destruction. She reaches out with a careful finger. The butterfly startles, then allows her to gather it in, to walk into her cupped palm. It has come a long distance. It must be tired as she feels. It has traveled continents, crossed high steeps and emerald jungles to land here, amongst hibiscus and paving stones, so that Kanya can now hold it in her hand and appreciate its beauty. Such a long way to travel. Kanya makes a fist on its fluttering, opens her hand, and lets its dust drop to the tiles, wing fragments, and pulped body. A manufactured pollinator, wafted from some pure cow laboratory, most likely. Windups have no souls, but they are beautiful.
Unexpected, but interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh look, butterfly. Dead butterfly.
Mm-hmm. She thinks it's manufactured.
Probably
that's
was.
yeah, might have been, probably was. A splash comes from behind her. Kip is wearing a bathing suit now. She flickers underwater, rises, pushing her long hair back and smiling before turning and beginning another lap. Kanya watches her swim, the graceful crawl of blue suit and brown limbs. A pretty girl, a pleasant creature to watch. Eventually, the demon wheels out to the pool edge. He's much more worse than when she last saw him. Fagan scars mark his throat and curl to his ear, an opportunistic infection that he fought off despite the doctor's prognosis. He is in a wheelchair, pushed by an attendant. A thin blanket covers his stick legs, so his disease truly is progressing. For a long time, she thought it was only a myth, but now she can see. The man is ugly, horrifying in his disease and his burning intensity. Kanya shivers. She'll be glad when the demon finally goes to his next life, becomes a corpse they can burn in quarantine. Until then, she hopes the drugs will continue to suppress his contagion. He's a crabbed, hairy man with bushy eyebrows, a fat nose, and wide, rubbery lips that break into a hyena grin when he sees Kanya. Ah, my jailer. Hardly. Gibbons glances at Kip, where she swims. Just because you give me pretty girls with pretty mouths doesn't mean I'm not jailed. He looks up. So, Kanya, I haven't seen you in a while. Where's your upright lord and master, my most favored keeper? Where is our fighting Captain JD? I don't deal with subordinates. He breaks off, studying Kanya's collar ranks. His eyes narrow. Ah, I see. He leans back, regarding Kanya. It was just a matter of time before someone deposed of him. Congratulations on your promotion, Captain. Kanya forces herself to remain impassive. On her previous visits, it was JD who always treated with the devil. They went away into interior offices, leaving Kanya to wait beside the pool with whatever creature the doctor had chosen for his pleasure. When JD returned, it was always with a pursed-lipped silence. On one occasion, as they left the compound, JD had nearly said whatever was churning in his head. He opened his mouth and said, "But," a protest that remained half-formed, dead as soon as it passed his lips. Kanya had the impression that JD was still carrying on a conversation, a verbal battle that pinged back and forth like a takraw game, a war of words flying and ricocheting with JD's skull as the playing court. On another occasion, JD had simply left the compound with a scowl and the words, "He is too dangerous to keep." Kanya had responded confused, "But he does not work for Agragen anymore." And JD had looked at her surprised, only then realizing that he had spoken aloud. The doctor was legendary, a demon to frighten children with. When Kanya first met him, she expected the man to be bound in chains, not sitting complacently and scooping out the guts of a co-angrit papaya, happy and grinning with juice running down his chin. Kanya was never sure if it was guilt or some other strange driving force that had sent the doctor to the kingdom, if the lure of ladyboys and his imminent death had caused it, if a falling out with his colleagues had driven him. The doctor seemed to have no regrets, no concerns over the damage he had inflicted in the world. Spoke jokingly of foiling Ravida and Domingo, of wrecking 10 years' labor for Dr. Michael Ping. A Cheshire steals across the patio, breaking Kanya's thoughts. It leaps into the doctor's lap. Kanya steps back, disgusted, as the man scratches behind the Cheshire's ears. It molts, legs and bodies changing hue, taking on the colors of the old man's quilt. The doctor smiles. "Don't cling too tightly to what is natural, Captain. Here, look." He bends forward, making cooing noises. The shimmer of the Cheshire cranes towards his face, mewling. It's tortoise shell. How do you pronounce this? It's tortoise shell fur glimmers. It licks tentatively at his chin.
Turquoise?
No.
No?
Tortoise shell. Tortoise's shell. Tortoise's shell.
Tortoise.
Tortoise shell.
Tortoise.
Yeah. As tortoiseshell glimmers.
Fun fact, viewers, it's whatever pronunciation we want it to be because you can't see the letters.
I can see them.
No, they can't.
Oh, they can. You know what? That's true.
It's like, crap, you're right.
Its tortoiseshell glimmers. It licks tentatively at his chin. "A hungry little beast," he says. "A good thing. A good thing that. If it's hungry enough, it will succeed us entirely, unless we design a better prototype. Something that hungers for it in turn. We've run the analysis of that," Kanya says. "The food web only unravels more completely. Another super predator won't solve the damage already done." Gibbons snorts. "The ecosystem unraveled when man first went seafaring. When we first lit fires on the board of savannas of Africa, we have only accelerated the phenomenon. The food web you talk about is nostalgia, nothing more. Nature. He makes a disgusted face. We are nature. Our every tinkering is nature. Our every biological striving. We are what we are, and the world is ours. We are its gods. Your only difficulty is your unwillingness to unleash your potential fully upon it. Like Agrogen, like you, Texas, like Red Star Hydro. Kanya shakes her head. How many of us are dead because of their potentials unleashed? Your calorie master showed us what happens. People die. Everyone dies. The doctor waves a dismissal. But you die now because you cling to the past. We should all be wind-ups by now. It's easier to build a person impervious to blister us than to protect an earlier version of the human creature. A generation from now, we could be well suited for our new environment. Your children could be the beneficiaries, yet you people refuse to adapt. You cling to some idea of a humanity that evolved in concert with your environment over millennia, and which you now... Excuse me. Okay. Nothing important. Apologies. Your children could be the beneficiaries, yet you people refuse to adapt. You cling to some idea that the idea of a humanity that evolved in concert with your environment over millennia, and which you now perversely refuse to remain in lockstep with. Blister rust is our environment. Cypsosis, gene hack weevil, Cheshires, they have adapted. Quibble as you like about whether they evolved naturally or not, our environment has changed. If we wish to remain at the top of our food chain, we will evolve. Or we will refuse and go the way of the dinosaurs and Felis domesticus. Evolve or die. It has always been nature's guiding principle, and yet you white shirts seek to stand in the way of inevitable change. He leans forward. I want to shake you sometimes. If you would just let me, I could be your god and shape you to the Eden that beckons us. I'm Buddhist. And we all know wind-ups have no souls. Gibbons grins. No rebirth for them. They will have their own gods to protect them, their own gods to pray for their dead. His grin widens. Perhaps I will be that one, and your wind-up children will pray to me for salvation. His eyes twinkle. I would like a few more worshippers, I must admit. JD was like you, always such a doubter. Not as bad as Grahamites, but still not particularly satisfactory for a god. Kanya makes a face. When you die, we will burn you to ash and bury you in chlorine and lye, and no one will remember you. The doctor shrugs, unconcerned. All gods must suffer. He leans back in his chair, smiling slyly. So, you would like me to burn at the stake now, or would you like to prostrate yourself before me and worship my intelligence once again? Kanya hides her disgust at the man, pulls out a bundle of papers and hands them across. The doctor takes them, but doesn't do anything else. Doesn't open them, barely glances at them. Yes? It's all in there, she says. You haven't knelt yet. You give more respect to your father, I'm sure, to the city pillar for certain. My father is dead, and Bangkok will drown. It doesn't mean you shouldn't show respect. Kanya fights the urge to take out her baton and club him. Gibbons smiles at her resistance. Shall we chat a while then first? He asks. JD always liked to talk, no? I can see from your expression you despise me. You think I'm some murderer, perhaps? Some killer of children? You won't break bread with one such as me. You are a killer. You're a killer. Your tool entirely. What does that make you? He watches her, amused. It feels to Kanya as if the man is using his eyes to carefully cut open her innards, lifting and examining each organ in turn. Lungs, stomach, liver, heart. Gibbons smiles slightly. You want me dead. His pale, mottled face splits into a wider grin, his eyes mad and intense. You should shoot me if you hate me so. When Kanya doesn't respond, he throws up his hands in disgust. Fuck me, you're all so shy. Kip's the only one of you who's worth a damn. His eyes turn to the girl, where she swims, watches her, mesmerized for a moment. Go ahead and kill me. I'd be happy to die. I'm only alive because you keep me this way. Not for much longer. The doctor looks down at his paralyzed legs, laughs. No, not for long. And then what will you do when Nigrogen and its ilk launch another assault? When spores float to you from Burma? When they wash up on the beach from India? Will you starve the way the Indians did, or will your flesh rot off you as it did for the Burmese? Your country only stays one step ahead of plagues because of me and my rotting mind. He waves at his legs. Will you rot with me? He pulls aside his blankets, shows the sores and scabs on his pale, fleshy legs, pasty from the loss of blood and wheels of supporting flesh. Will you die like this? He grins mirthlessly. Kanya looks away. You deserve it. It's your karma. Your death will be painful. Karma. Did you say karma? The doctor leans closer, brown eyes rolling, tongue lolling. And what sort of karma is it that ties your entire country to me, to my rotting, broken body? What sort of karma is it that behooves you to keep me, of all people, alive? He grins. I think a great deal about your karma. Perhaps it's your pride, your hubris, that is being repaid, that forces you to lap seed stock from my hand. Or perhaps you're the vehicle of my enlightenment and salvation. Who knows? Perhaps I'll be reborn at the right hand of Buddha thanks to the kindness I do for you. That's not the way it works. The doctor shrugs. I don't care. Just give me another light keep to fuck. Throw me another of your sickened lost souls. Throw me a wind-up. I don't care. I'll take what flesh you throw me. Just don't bother me. I'm beyond worrying about your rotting country now. He tosses the papers into the pool. They scatter across the water. Kanya gasps, horrified, and nearly lunges after them before steeling herself and forcing herself to draw back. She will not allow Gibbons to bait her. This is the way of the calorie men, always manipulating, always testing. She forces herself to look away from the parchment, slowly soaking in the pool, and turn her eyes to him. Gibbons smiles slightly. Well, are you going to swim for them or not? He nods at Kip. My little nymph will help you. I'd enjoy seeing the two of you nymphs frolicking together. Kanya shakes her head. Get them out yourself. I always like it when an uptight person such as yourself comes before me. A woman with pure convictions. He leans forward, eyes narrow. Someone with real qualifications to judge my work. You were a killer. I advanced my field. It wasn't my business what they did with my research. You have a spring gun. It's not the manufacturer's fault that you are likely unreliable. That you may at any time kill the wrong person. I built the tools of life. If people use them for their own ends, then that is their karma, not mine. Agrigen paid you well to think so. Agrigen paid me well to make them rich. My thoughts are my own. He studies Kanya. I suppose you have a clean conscience. One of those uptight military officers, as pure as your uniform, as clean as sterilizer can make you. He leans forward. Tell me, do you take bribes? Kanya opens her mouth to retort, but words fail her. She can almost feel J.D. drifting close, listening. Her skin prickles. She forces herself not to look over her shoulder. Gibbons smiles. Of course you do. All of your kind are the same. Corrupt, from top to bottom. Kanya's hand slides towards her pistol. The doctor watches, smiling. What? Are you threatening to shoot me? Do you want a bribe from me as well? Would you like me to suck your cunt? To offer my not-quite-girl? He stares at Kanya, hard-eyed. You've taken my money already. My life is already shortened and full of pain. What else do you want? Why not take my girl? Kip looks up expectantly from the pool, treading water. Her body shimmers under the clear ripples of the waves. Kanya looks away. The doctor laughs. Sorry, Kip. We don't have the bribes this one likes. He drums his fingers on his chair. What about a young boy, then? There's a lovely 12-year-old who works my kitchen. He would be happy to perform. The pleasure of a white shirt is always paramount. Kanya glares at him. I could break your bones. Do it then, but hurry up. I want a reason not to help you. Why did you help Agrigen for so long? The doctor's eyes narrow. The same reason you run like a dog for your masters. They paid me in the coin I wanted most. Her slap rings across the water. The guards start forward, but Kanya is already drawing back, shaking off the sting in her hand, waving away the guards. We are fine. Nothing is wrong. The guards pause, unsure of their duties and loyalties. The doctor touches his broken lip, examines the blood thoughtfully, looks up. A sore spot there. How much of yourself have you already sold? He smiles, showing teeth, rimmed bloody with Kanya's strike. Are you Agrigen's, then? Complicit? He looks into Kanya's eyes. Are you here to kill me? To end my thorn in their side? He watches closely, eyes peering into her soul, observant, curious. It is only a matter of time. They must know that I'm here, that I'm yours. The kingdom couldn't have fared so well for so long without me, couldn't have released nightshades and all without my help. We all know they are hunting. Are you my hunter, then? Are you my destiny? Kanya scowls. Hardly. We're not done with you yet. Gibbon slumps. Of course not. But then you never will be. That is the nature of our beasts and plagues. They are not dumb machines to be driven about. They have their own needs and hungers, their own evolutionary demands. They must mutate and adapt, and so you will never be done with me. And when I'm gone, what will you do then? We have released demons upon the world, and your walls are only as good as my intellect. Nature has become something new. It is ours now, truly. And if our creation devours us, how poetic will that be? Kama, she murmurs. Precisely. Gibbons leans back, smiling. Kip, get the pages. Let me see what can be deciphered from this puzzle. He drums his fingers on his ruined legs, thoughtful. Smirks at Kanya. Let us see how close to death your precious kingdom lies. Kip swims to collect the pages, rippling through the water as she gathers them to her, pulling them dripping and limp from the pool. A smile flickers across Gibbon's lips as he watches her swim. You're lucky I like Kit. If I didn't, I would have let you all succumb years ago. He nods to his guards. The captain will have samples on her bicycle. Get them. We'll take them down to the lab. Kit finally emerges from the pool and sets the sopping stack of papers on the doctor's lap. He motions and she begins pushing him toward the door of his villa. The doctor waves for Kanya to follow. Come on then, this won't take long. Charming fellow. The doctor squints over the slides. I'm surprised you think this is an inert mutation. 3 cases only. The doctor looks up. For now. He smiles. Life is exponential. 2 becomes 4, becomes 10,000, becomes a plague. Maybe it's everywhere in the population already, and we never noticed. Maybe this is its end stage. Terminal, without symptoms, like poor Kit. Kanya glances at the ladyboy. Kit gives a gentle smile and a gentle return smile. Nothing shows on her skin. Nothing shows on her body. It's not the doctor's disease she dies of. And yet, Kanya steps away involuntarily. The doctor grins. Don't look so worried. You have the same sickness. Life is, after all, inevitably fatal. He looks into the microscope. Not an indie gene hack. Something else. Not a blister rust. Nothing of Agrigent's markings. Abruptly, he makes a face of disgust. This is nothing interesting for me. Just a stupid mistake by some fool. Hardly worth my intellect at all. That's good, then. An accidental plague kills just as surely. Is there a way to stop it? The doctor picks up a crust of bread. A greenish mold covers it. He eyes the stuff. So many growing things are beneficial to us, and so many are deadly. He offers the piece of bread to Kanya. Try it. Kanya recoils. Gibbons grins and takes a bite. Offers it again. Trust me. Kanya shakes her head, forcing herself not to mouth superstitious prayers to Fraseo for luck and cleanliness. She envisions the revered man sitting in his lotus, forces herself not to respond to the doctor's taunts, touches her amulet. The doctor takes another bite. Grins as crumbs cascade down his chin. If you take a bite, I'll guarantee you an answer. I wouldn't take anything from your hand. The doctor laughs. You already have. Every injection you took as a child, every inoculation, every booster since. He offers the bread. This is just more direct. You'll be glad you did. Kanya nods at the microscope. What is that thing? Do you need to test more? Gibbons shakes his head. That is nothing. A stupid mutation. A standard outcome. We used to see them in our labs. Junk. Then why haven't we ever seen it before? Gibbons makes a face of impatience. You don't culture death the way we do. You don't tinker with the building blocks of nature. Interest and passion flicker briefly in the old man's eyes. Mischief and predatory interests. You have no idea what things we succeeded in creating in our labs. This stuff is hardly worth my time. I hoped you were bringing me a challenge. Something from Doctors Ping and Raymond, or perhaps Mamount Santhalida. Those are challenges. For a moment, his eyes lose their cynicism and become entranced. Ah, now those were worthy opponents. We are in the hands of a gamesman. In a flash of insight, Kanya understands the doctor entirely. A fierce intellect, a man who reached the pinnacle of his field, a jealous and competitive man, a man who found his competition too lacking in so switched sides and joined the Thai kingdom for the stimulation it might provide. An intellectual exercise for him. As if JD had decided to fight a Muay Thai match with his hands tied behind his back to see if he could win with kicks alone. We rest in the hands of a fickle god. He plays on our behalf only for entertainment, and he will close his eyes and sleep if we fail to engage his intellect. A horrifying thought. The man exists only for competition. The chess match of evolution, fought on a global scale. An exercise in ego. A single giant fending off the attacks of dozens of others. A giant swatting them from the sky and laughing, but all giants must fall. And then what must the Thai kingdom look forward to? It makes Kanya sweat thinking about it. Gibbons is watching her. You have more questions for me? Kanya shakes off the terror. We're sure about this. You know what we need to do already. You can tell just by looking. The doctor shrugs. If you don't believe me, then go back and follow your standard methods. Textbook your way to your deaths. Or you can simply burn your factory district to the ground and root out the problem. He grins. Now there's a blunt instrument solution for you white shirts. The Environment Ministry was always fond of those. He waves a hand. This garbage isn't particularly viable yet. It mutates quickly, certainly, but it is fragile, and the human host is not ideal. It needs to be rubbed on the mucous membranes in the nostrils, in the eyes, in the anus, or somewhere close to blood and life, somewhere it can breed. Then we're safe. It's no worse than hepatitis or fagon. But much more inclined to mutate. He looks at Kanya again. One other thing you should know. The manufacturer you want will have chemical baths. Someplace where they can culture biological products. A high-grow factory, an agrogen facility, a wind-up manufactory, something like that. Kanya glances at the mastiffs. Would wind-ups carry it? He reaches down and pats one of the guard dogs, goading her. If it's avian or mammalian, it could. A bath facility is where I would look first. If this were Japan, a wind-up creche would be my first guess, but anyone involved in biological products could be the index source. What kind of wind-ups? Gibbons blows out an exasperated breath. It's not the kind. It's a matter of exposure. If they were cultured in tainted baths, they may be carriers. Then again, if you leave that garbage to mutate, it will be in people soon enough, and the question of its index will be moot. How long do we have? Gibbons shrugs. This isn't the decay of uranium or the velocity of a clipper ship. This is not predictable. Feed the beasts well, and they will learn to gorge. Culture them in a humid city of dense, packed people, and they will thrive. Decide for yourself how worried you should be. Kanya turns, disgusted, and heads out the door. Gibbons calls after her. Good luck! I'll be interested to see which of your many enemies kills you first. Kanya ignores the taunt and bolts to clean open air. Kip approaches her, toweling her hair. Was the doctor helpful? He gave me enough. Kip laughs, a soft twittering. I used to think so, but I've learned that he never tells everything the first time. He leaves things out, vital things. He likes company. She touches Kanya's arm, and Kanya has to force herself not to recoil. Kip sees the movement, but only smiles gently. He likes you. He'll want you to return. Kanya shivers. He'll be disappointed then. Kip watches her with wide, liquid eyes. I hope you don't die too soon. I also like you. As Kanya leaves the compound, she catches sight of JD standing at the edge of the ocean, watching the surf. As if sensing her gaze, he turns and smiles before shimmering into nothingness. Another spirit with nowhere to go. She wonders if JD will ever manage to reincarnate, or if he will continue to haunt her. If the doctor is right, perhaps he is waiting to come back as something that will not fear the plagues, some creature that has not yet been conceived. Maybe JD's only hope for reincarnation is to find new life in the husk of a wind-up body. Kanya squashes the thought. It's an evil idea. She hopes instead that JD will incarnate into some heaven where wind-ups and blister rust can never be. That even if he never achieves nibbana, never finishes his time as a monk, never makes his way into Buddhahood, that at least he will be saved from the anguish of watching the world he so dutifully defended, stripped of its flesh by the slavering masses of nature's new successes. These wind-up creatures that seethe all around. JD died, but perhaps that is the best that anyone can hope for. Perhaps if she put a spring gun in her mouth and pulled the trigger, she would be happier. Perhaps if she had no urge to house and no comma of betrayal. Perhaps if she had no large house and no comma of betrayal. Kanya shakes her head. If anything is certain, she must do her duty here. Her own soul will certainly be sent back to this world again, at best as a human being, at worst as something else, some dog or cockroach. Whatever mess she leaves behind, she will undoubtedly face it again and again and again. Her betrayals guarantee it. She must fight this battle until her karma is finally cleansed. To flee now in suicide would be to face it in an uglier form than in the future. There is no escape for such as she. Drink.
Stay hydrated, y'all.
Stay hydrated, y'all. Okay. Well, we met a new character. A couple new characters. Chapter 29. I think I got some hair in my mouth, sorry. Despite the curfews and the white shirts, Anderson-sama seems almost reckless with his attentions. It's almost as if he is making up for something, but when Imiko repeats her concerns about Relay, Anderson-sama only smiles a secret smile and tells her she needn't worry. All things are in flux. My people are coming, he says. Very soon. Everything will be different. No more white shirts. It sounds very beautiful. It will be, he says. I'll be gone for a few days making arrangements. When I get back, everything will be different. And then he disappears, leaving her with the admonishment that she should not change her patterns and should not tell Relay anything. He gives her a key to his flat. And so it is that Imiko wakes on clean sheets in a cool room in the evening, with a crank fan beating slowly overhead. She can barely remember the last time she slept without pain or fear, and she is groggy with it. The rooms are dim, lit only by the glow of the street's gas lights, flickering alive like fireflies. She's hungry, ravenous. She finds Anderson-sama's kitchen and roots through sealed bins for snacks, for crackers, for snaps or cakes or anything. Anderson-sama has no fresh vegetables, but he has rice, and there is soy and fish sauce, and she heats water on a burner, marveling at the methane jug that he keeps unsecured. It is difficult for her to remember that she ever took such things for granted, that Gendo-sama kept her in accommodations twice as luxurious on the top floor of a Kyoto apartment, with a view of Toji Temple and a slow movement of old men tending the shrine in their black robes. That long ago time is like a dream to her. The autumn sky with its clear, breathless blue. She remembers the pleasure of watching new people, children, from their creche feeding the ducks, or learning tea ceremony with attention, both total and without redemption. She remembers her own training. With a chill, she sees that she was trained to excellence, to the eternal service of a master. She remembers how Gendo-sama took her and showered her with affection, and then discarded her like a tamarind hull. It was always her destiny. It was no accident. Her eyes narrow as she stares at the pan and its boiling water, at the rice she has so perfectly measured by sight alone, without a measure cup, but simply scooped with a bowl, knowing precisely how much she needed, and then unconsciously settling that rice into a perfect layer, as if it were a gravel garden, as if she were preparing to perform Seizen meditation on its grains, as if she would rake and rake and rake for her life with a little bowl of rice. She lashes out. The rice bowl shatters, shards spinning in different directions, the pot of water flying, scalding jewels gleaming. Emiko stands amidst the whirlwind, watching droplets fly, the rice grains suspended. All of it stopped in motion, as if grain and water are wind up stuttering in flight, as if she herself is forced to stumble herky-jerky through the world, strange and surreal in the eyes of the naturals, in the eyes of the people she so desperately desires to serve. Look what service has brought you. The pot hits the wall. Rice grains skitter across marble. Water soaks everything. Tonight she will learn the location of this new people village, the place where her own kind live and have no masters, where new people serve only themselves. Anderson-sama may say that his people are coming, but in the end, he will always be natural, and she will always be new people, and she will always serve. She stifles the urge to clean up the rice, to make things neat for Anderson-sama when he returns. Instead, she makes herself stare at the mess and recognize that she is no longer a slave. If he wishes rice cleaned off the floor, there are others to do his dirty work. She is something else, something different, optimal in her own way. And if she was once a falcon tethered to Gendo-sama, Gendo-sama has done one thing she can be grateful for. He has cut her justice. She can be free. It's like nobody trusts nobody. It is almost too easy to slip through the darkness. Emiko bobs amid the crowds, new color bright on her lips. Her eyes darkened, glinting silver hoops at her lobes. She is new people, and she moves through the crowds so smoothly that they do not know she is there. She laughs at them, laughs and slips between them. There's something suicidal ticking in her wind-up nature. She hides in the open. She does not scuttle. Fate has cupped her in its protective hands. She slips through the crowds, people jerking away, startled from the wind-up in their midst, from the bit of transgressive manufactory that has the effrontery to stain their sidewalks, as if their land were half as pristine as the islands that have ejected her. She wrinkles her nose. Even Nippon's effluent is too good for this raucous, stinking place. They simply do not recognize how she graces them. She laughs to herself and realizes when others look at her that she has laughed aloud. White shirts ahead, flashes of them between the trundle of megadonts and handcarts. Yumiko stops at the rail of a clong bridge, looking down at the waters, waiting for the threat to pass. She sees herself in the canal's reflection, with the green glow of the lamps all around, backlighting her. She feels perhaps she could become one with the water if she simply stares at the glow long enough. Become a water lady. Already is she not part of the flowing world? Does she not deserve to float and slowly sink? She stifles the thought. That is the old Yumiko. The one who could never teach her to fly. A man approaches and leans against the rail. She doesn't look up, watches his reflection in the water. I like to watch the children race their boats through the canal, he says. She nods slightly, not trusting herself to speak. Is there something you see in the water? That you look so long? She shakes her head. His white uniform is tinged green. He is so close he can reach out and touch her. She wonders what his kind eyes would look like if his hands touched the surface of her skin. You don't have to be afraid of me, he says. It's just a uniform. You haven't done anything wrong. No, she whispers. I am not afraid. That's good. A pretty girl like you shouldn't be. He pauses. Your accent is odd. When I first saw you, I thought you might be Chaozu. She shakes her head, slightly. A jerk. So sorry. Japanese. With the factories. She shrugs. His eyes bore into her. She makes her head turn slowly, smoothly. Not a single stutter, not a single jerk, and meet his eyes, return his gaze. Older than she first thought, middle-aged, she thinks, or not. Perhaps he is young and only worn down by the evils of his job. She stifles the urge to extend pity to him, fights her genetic need to serve him, even if he would sooner see her dismembered. Slowly, she turns her eyes back to the water. What is your name? She hesitates. Yumiko. A nice name. It doesn't mean something. She shakes her head. Nothing important. So modest for a woman so beautiful. She shakes her head. No, not so. I am ugly. She breaks off, sees him staring, realizes that she has forgotten herself. Her movements have betrayed her. His eyes are wide, surprised. She backs away from him, all pretense of humanity forgotten. His eyes harden. Kichi, he breathes. She smiles tightly. It was an honest mistake. Show me your import permits. She smiles. Of course. I'm sure they are here. Of course. She backs away. Flashbulb moments broadcasting every kink in her DNA. He reaches for her, but she pulls her arm from his grasp. In a quick twist, and then she is turning away, breaking into flight, blurring into traffic as he shouts after her. Stop her! Stop! Ministry business! Stop that wind-up! Her whole essence cries to stop and give herself up, to bend to his command. It is all she can do to keep running, to push herself against the lashings of Mizumi-sensei when she dared disobey, the disapproving sting of Mizumi's tongue when she dared to object to another's desires. Himiko burns with shame as his commands echo behind her, but then the crowds have swallowed her, and the surge of Megadon traffic is all around. And he is far too slow to discover which alley hides her as she recovers. It takes extra time to avoid the white shirts, but at the same time, it is a game. Himiko can play this game for now. If she is quick and careful and allows time between her sudden surges, she evades them easily. At speed, she marvels at the movements of her body, how startlingly fluid she becomes, as if she is finally being true to her nature, as if all the training and lashes from Mizumi-sensei were designed to keep this knowledge buried. Eventually, she makes blowing chit and climbs the tower. Relay is waiting by the bar, as he always is, impatient. He glances up. You're late. I'm fining you for that. Himiko forces herself not to feel guilt, even as she apologizes. So sorry, Relay-san. Hurry up and get changed. You have VIP guests tonight. They're important, and they'll be here soon. I want to ask you about the village. What village? She keeps her face pleasant. Did he lie about it? Was it always a lie? The place for new people? Still worrying about that. He shakes his head. I told you. Earn up, and I'll make sure you get there. If that's what you want. He waves her towards the dressing rooms. Now go get changed. Himiko starts to press again, then simply nods. Afterward, when he is drunk, when he is pliable, she will pry the information from him. In the dressing room, Kaneka is already pulling on her performance clothes. She makes a face at Himiko, but doesn't say anything as Himiko changes, then goes out to get her first glass of ice for the evening. She drinks carefully, savoring the coolness and sense of well-being that overcomes her, even in the swelter of the tower. Out beyond the roped-off windows, the city glows. From a height, it is beautiful. Without natural people in it, she thinks that she could enjoy it here. She drinks more water. A rustle of warning and surprise. Women drop to their knees and press their foreheads to the ground in a crab. Himiko joins them. The man is back again. The hard man. The one who came with Anderson-sama before. She searches for signs of Anderson-sama, hoping that he will be there too, but there's no sign of him. The Somdet Xiaopreya and his friends are already flushed and drunk as they come through the doors. Relay rushes to them and ushers them into his VIP room. Kaneka slips up behind her. Finish your water, Kichi. You've got work to do. Himiko stifles the urge to snap at the girl. It would be insane to do so, but she looks at Kaneka and prays that when she knows the village's location, that she will have an opportunity to pay the woman back for all the abuse she has delivered. The VIP room is crowded with men. There are windows to the outside, but with the door closed, there is little circulation. And the act is worse than when Himiko is on stage. Normally there are patterns to Kaneka's abuse. Here, though, Kaneka leads her around, introducing her to the men, encouraging them to touch her and feel the heat of her skin, saying things like, "You like her. You think she's a nasty dog? Watch. You'll see a nasty one tonight." The powerful one and his bodyguards and his friends are all laughing and making jokes at the sight of her. At the feel of her as they pinch her ass and tug her breasts, run their fingers up between her thighs, all of them a little nervous at the novelty of her entertainment. Kanika points to the table. Up. Mimiko climbs awkwardly onto the gleaming black surface. Kanika snaps at her, making her walk, making her bow, makes her totter back and forth in her strange wind-up way while liquor flows and more girls come in and sit with the men and laugh and make jokes, and all the while Emiko is shown off, and then, as it must be, Kanika takes her. She forces Emiko down on the table. The men gather round as Kanika begins her abuse. Slowly it builds, first playing on her nipples, then sliding the jaded cock between her legs, encouraging the reactions that have been designed into her, and which she cannot control, no matter how much her soul fights against it. The men cheer at Emiko's degradation, encouraging escalation, and Kanika, flushed with excitement, begins to devise new tortures. She squats over Emiko, parts the cheeks of her ass, and encourages Emiko to plumb her depths. The men laugh as Emiko obeys and Kanika narrates. Ah, yes. I feel her tongue now. Then, do you like it with your tongue there, dirty wind-up? To the men, she likes it. All these dirty wind-ups like it. More laughter. More, nasty girl. More. And then she is pressing down, smothering her, encouraging Emiko to redouble her efforts as her humiliation mounts, encouraging her to work harder to please. Kanika's hand joins Emiko's tongue, playing, taking pleasure from Emiko's subservience. Emiko hears Kanika speaking again. You want to see her? Go ahead. Hands on Emiko's thighs, pausing, pushing them apart so that she is completely exposed. Fingers play at her folds, penetrate her. Kanika laughs. You want to fuck her? Fuck the wind-up girl. Here, give me her legs. Her hands close on Emiko's ankles, pull them up, exposing her completely. No, Emiko whispers, but Kanika is implacable. She pries Emiko's legs wide. Be a good little hichi-kichi. Kanika settles herself again over Emiko, narrating her degradation to the assembled men. She'll eat anything you put in her mouth, she says, and the men are laughing. And then Kanika is pressing down hard on Emiko's face, and Emiko can't see anymore. Can only hear as Kanika calls her a slut and a dog and a nasty wind-up toy, calls her no better than a dildo. And then there is silence. Emiko tries to move, but Kanika keeps her pinned, muffled from the world. Stay there, Kanika says. Then, no, use this. Emiko feels men taking her arms, pinning her down, fingers prod her, invade her, slide in. Oil it, Kanika whispers, excitement in her voice. Her hands tighten on Emiko's ankles. Wetness at her anus, slick, then a pressure, cold pressure. Emiko moans a protest. The pressure lets up for a moment, but then Kanika says, You call yourselves men? Fuck her. Look how she jerks. Look at her arms and her legs when you push. Make her do hichi-kichi dance. And then the pressure comes back, and the men are holding her down more tightly. She can't get up, and the cold thing presses again against her ass, penetrates her, spreads her wide, splits her open, fills her, and she is crying out. Kanika laughs. That's right, wind-up. Earn your keep. You can get up when you make me come. And then Emiko is licking again, slobbering and laughing like a dog, desperate as the champagne bottle penetrates her again. As it withdraws and shoves deep into her, burning, the men all laugh. Look at how she moves. Tears jewel in her eyes. Kanika encourages her to greater effort. And the falcon, if there is any falcon in Emiko, at all, if it ever existed, is a dead thing, dangling. Not meant to live or fly or escape. Meant to do nothing but submit. Himiko learns her place once again. All night long, Kaneka teaches the merits of obedience, and Himiko begs to obey and stop the pain and violation, begs to serve, to do anything at all to let the wind-up live just a little longer, and Kaneka laughs and laughs. Explicit chapter, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
By the time Kaneka is done with her, it is late. Himiko sits against a wall, exhausted and broken. Her mascara has run. Inside, she is dead. Better to be dead than a wind-up, she thinks. She watches dully as a man starts to mop the club. At the other end of the bar, Relay drinks his whiskey and laughs. The man with the mop slowly approaches. Himiko wonders if he will try to mop her away with the rest of the filth. If he will take her out and throw her into one of the trash piles, leave her for the Dung Lord's collection. She can simply lie there and let them mulch her. Thrown away as Gendo-sama should have discarded her. She's trash. Himiko understands this now. The man pushes his rag mop around her. "Why don't you throw me away?" she croaks. The man looks at her uncertainly, then turns his eyes to his work, keeps mopping. She says again, "Answer me," she shouts. "Why don't you throw me away?" Her words echo in the room. Relay glances up and frowns. She realizes that she has been speaking in Japanese. She says it again in Thai. "Throw me away. Why not? I'm trash too. Throw me away." "Throw me away!" The mopping man flinches and draws back, smiling uncertainly. Relay approaches, kneels down beside her. "Himiko, get up. You're frightening my cleaning guy." Himiko makes a face. "I don't care." "Sure you do." He nods toward the door to the private room where the men are still reclining, drinking and talking after their abuse of her. "I've got a bonus for you. Those guys tip well." Himiko looks up at him. "They tip Kaneka, too?" Relay studies her. "It's not your business." "They tip her triple. Give me 50 baht?" His eyes narrow. "Don't." "Or what? Or you throw Himiko into a methane composter? Dump me with the white shirts?"
Don't push me.
"You don't want to piss me off." He stands up. "Come get your money when you're done feeling sorry for yourself." Himiko watches dully as he stalks back to his bar stool, gets himself a drink. He glances back at her, makes a comment to Dang, who smiles dutifully and pours water with ice. Relay waves the water at her, sets it on top of a purple sheaf of baht. He goes back to his drinking, seeming to ignore her staring. What happens to wind-up girls who are broken? She never knew a wind-up girl who died. Sometimes an old patron did, but the wind-up girl lived. Her girlfriends lived. They lasted longer. Something she never asked Misumi-sensei. Himiko hobbles to the bar, stumbles, leans against it, drinks the ice. Relay shoves the money over. She finishes the ice water, swallows the cubes, feels their colds seeping into her core. "Have you asked yet?"
About what?
He's playing solitaire on the bar. "Going north." He glances up at her, then flips another set of cards. He's quiet for a second.
That's tough work. Not something you set up in a day.
"Have you asked?" He glances at her. "Yeah, I asked. and no one's going anywhere while the white shirts are pissed off about the JD massacre. I'll let you know when the situation changes. I want to go north. You already told me. Earn up and it will happen. I earn plenty. I want to go now. Relay's slap comes fast, but she sees it coming. It is fast for him, but not for her. She watches his hand proceed toward her face with the sort of servile gratitude that she used to feel when Gendo-sama took her to dinner at a fancy restaurant. Her cheek stings, then floods with puffy numbness. She touches it with her fingers, savoring the wound. Relay looks at her coldly. You'll go when it's damn well convenient. Yumiko bows her head slightly, allowing the well-deserved lesson to filter into her core. You aren't going to help me, are you? Relay shrugs, goes back to his cards. Does it even exist? She asks. Relay glances over at it. Sure, if it makes you happy, it's there. If you keep hassling me about it, it doesn't. Now get out of my face. The falcon dangles dead. She's dead. Mulch for composters. Meat for the city. Rot for gaslights. Yumiko stares at Relay. The falcon lies dead. And then she thinks some things are worse than dying. Some things can never be born. Her fist is very fast. Relay-san's throat is soft. The old man topples, hands flying to his throat, eyes wide with shock. It is all slow motion. Dang, turning from the sound of the stool, clattering to the floor. Relay, sprawling, his mouth working, trying to suck air. The cleaning man dropping his mop. Noi and Sang at the other side of the bar with their men waiting to escort them home. All of them turning towards the sound. Every one of them is slow. By the time Relay hits the floor, Yumiko is already bolting across the room towards the VIP door and the man who hurt her most. The man who sits and laughs with his friends and thinks nothing of the pain he inflicts. She slams into the door. The men look up with surprise, heads turn, mouths open to cry out. The bodyguards are reaching for their spring guns. But all of them are moving too slow. None of them are new people. Hey, remember that breaking point I mentioned at the beginning of the book?
Mm-hmm. They reached their breaking point.
Mm-hmm. Pai crawls up beside Kanya. Pai crawls up beside Kanya, stares down at the shadow village below. That's it? Kanya nods and glances back at the rest of her squad, who have spread out to cover the other approaches to the shrimp farms where they breed bitter water-resistant prawns for the crunkfed fish markets. The houses are all on bamboo rafts, currently grounded, but when the floods come, the houses will float, rising as water and silt rushes across their paddy and ponds. Her own family on the Mekong and used something similar long years ago before General Prussia came. It is all a good lead. It was a good lead, she murmurs. Ratana had been almost ecstatic. A link, a clue, fish mites between the third body's toes. And if fish mites, then shrimp farms. And if shrimp farms, then the only ones that would have sent a worker into Bangkok. And that meant shrimp farms that had experienced a die-off, which led her to this Thornbury half-floating settlement, with all her men at the edge of the embankment, ready to raid into the darkness. Down below, a few candles flicker inside the bamboo houses. A dog barks. They're all wearing their containment suits. Ratana insisted that the likelihood of a jump was slender, and yet still a worry. The mosquito whines into Kanya's ears. She slaps it away and draws her containment suit's hood tight, starts to sweat in earnest. The sound of laughter carries across the fish ponds, a family, all together in the warmth of their hut. Even now, with all their hardship, people can still laugh. Not Kanya, though. Something in her is broken, it seems. JD always insisted that the kingdom was a happy country, that old story about the land of smiles, but Kanya can't think of a time when she has seen smiles as wide as those in museum photos from before the contraction. She sometimes wonders if those people in the photos were acting, if perhaps the National Gallery is intended to depress her, or if it is really true that at some point people smiled so totally, so fearlessly. Kanya pulls her mask over her face. Send them in. Pai signals them in, and then her troops are all up and over the edges, coming down on the village, surrounding it as they always do before the burning begins. When they came to her own village, the white shirts appeared between two huts in the space of a minute, flares hissing and sparking in their hands. This is different. No blaring megaphones, no officers splashing through ankle-deep waters, dragging screaming people away from their houses as bamboo weatherall burst orange and alive with flame. General Praksha wants it quiet. As he signed the quarantine waivers, he said, JD would have turned this into an emergency, but we don't have the resources to stir the cobra's nest with trade and also handle this. It could even be used against us. Deal with this quietly. Of course, quietly. The dog starts barking madly. It's joined by others as they approach. A few villagers come out on their porches, peer out into the darkness, catch the gleam of white in the night. They shout warnings to their families as Kanya's white shirts break into a run. JD kneels beside her, watching the action. Raja talks about me as if I were some sort of megaton trampling rice shoots, he says. Kanya ignores him, but JD doesn't shut up. You should have seen him when we were both cadets, he says. He would piss his pants when we went out to the field. Kanya glances over at JD. Stop. Just because you're dead doesn't mean that you should heap disrespect upon him. Her men's shake light LEDs blaze alive, illuminating the village in a bitter glare. Families are dashing about like chickens, trying to hide food and animals. Someone tries to dash past a cordon, splashing through the water, diving into a pond, and flailing for the other side. Where more of Kanya's net appears. A man treads water in the center of the muddy shrimp hole, trapped. JD asks, how can you call him your leader when we both know where your true loyalties lie? Shut up. Is it hard being a horse ridden by two men at once? Both of them riding you like, shut up. Pai startles. What is it? Sorry, Kanya shakes her head. My fault. I was thinking. Pai nods down at the villagers. It looks like they're ready for you. Kanya gets to her feet, and she and Pai and JD, uninvited but smiling and pleased with himself, all descend. She has a photo of the dead man, a man black and white, a black and white thing developed in the lab with fumbling dark fingers. She shows it to the farmers under the beam of her shake light's LED shining it from the photo to their eyes, trying to catch them in a flinch of recognition. With some people, A white uniform opens doors, but with fish farmers, it is always a problem. She knows them well, reads the calluses on their hands, smells the stink of their successes and failures in the reek of the pond. Smells the stink of their successes and failures in the reek of the ponds. She sees herself through their eyes, and knows she might as well be an enforcer from a calorie company hunting for signs of gene hack. Still, the charade continues, all of them shaking their heads, Kanya shining her light into each one's eyes. One by one, they look away. Finally, she finds a man and waves a picture in front of him. Do you know him? Won't his relatives be looking for him? The man looks at the picture and then at Kanya's uniform. He doesn't have any relatives. Kanya jerks with surprise. You know him. Who was he? He's dead then? Doesn't he look dead? They both studied the bloodless photo. The ravaged face. I told him there were better things than factory jobs. He didn't listen. You say he worked in the city. That's right. Do you know where? He shakes his head. Where did he live? The man points toward a black shadow stilt house. Kanya waves at her men. Quarantine that hut. She tightens her mask and enters, sweeping her light around the space. It's gloomy, broken and strange and empty. Dust gleams in her beam. Knowing that the owner is already dead gives her a sense of foreboding. The man's spirit might be here, his hungry ghost lurking and angry that he is still in this world, that he has been sickened, that he may have been murdered. She fingers the man's few effects, wanders around the place. Nothing. She steps back outside. Off in the distance, the city rises, haloed in green. The place the dead man ran to when fish farming proved untenable. She goes back to the man. You're sure you don't know anything about where you worked? The man shakes his head. Nothing? Not a name? Anything? She tries not to let her desperation show. He shakes his head again. She turns in frustration and surveys the village. Blackness. Crickets chirp. Ivory beetles creak steadily. They're in the right place. She's so close. Where is the factory? Jibusen was right. She should just burn the entire factory district. In the old days, when the white shirts were strong, it would have been easy. You want to burn now? JD snickers beside her. Now you see my side? She ignores his jab. Not far away, a young girl is watching her intently. When Kanya catches her staring, she looks away. Kanya touches Pai on the shoulder. That one. The girl? He's surprised. Kanya is already walking, closing in on her. The girl looks as if she will bolt. Kanya kneels, still a good distance away, beckons her over. You, what's your name? The girl is obviously torn. She wants to flee, but Kanya has an authority that cannot be denied. Come over here. Tell me your name. She beckons again. And this time the girl allows herself to be reeled close. Mai, the girl whispers. Kanya holds up the photo. You know where this man worked, don't you? Mai shakes her head, but Kanya knows the girl is lying. Children are terrible liars. Kanya had been a terrible liar. When the white shirts questioned her where her family was hiding their carp breeding stock, she had told them south and they had gone north. With knowing adult smiles. She offers the photo to the girl. You understand how dangerous this is, yes? The girl hesitates. Will you burn the village? Kanya tries to keep the flood of reaction off her face. Of course not. She smiles again. speaks soothingly. Don't worry, Mai. I know what it is to fear. I grew up in a village like this. I know how hard it is. But you must help me find the source of the sickness, or more will die. I was told not to tell. And it is good for us to respect our patrons, Kanya pauses. But we all owe loyalty to Her Royal Majesty the Queen, and she wishes that we all be safe. The Queen would want you to help us. Mai hesitates, then says, 3 others worked at the factory. Kanya leans forward, trying to hide her eagerness. Which one? Mai hesitates. Kanya leans close. How many of you will blame you if you allow them to die before their karma allots their passing? Still, Mai hesitates. Kai says, if we break her fingers, she will tell us. The girl looks frightened, but Kanya holds out a soothing hand. Don't worry, he won't do anything. He is a tiger, but I have his leash. Please, just help us save the city. You can help us save Krungthep. The girl looks away, toward the crumbling glow of Bangkok across the waters. The factory is closed now, closed by you. That's very good then, but we must make sure the disease doesn't go any further. What is the name of the factory? The answer comes unwillingly. Spring Life. Kanya frowns, trying to remember the name. A King Spring company. One of the Chaozu. Mai shakes her head. Farang. Very rich Farang. Kanya settles beside her. Tell me more. Everything coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Huh. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna finish this tonight. I put a dent in it, but not nearly big enough. Well, let's continue. Anderson finds Yumiko huddled outside his door, and all at once a good sight becomes an uncertain one. For the last several days he has worked frantically to prepare the invasion, all of it crippled by the fact that he never expected to be cut off from his own factory. His own piss-poor planning forced him to waste extra days scouting a safe route back to the Spring Life facility without being caught by the plethora of white shirts patrols that cordoned the manufacturing district. If it hadn't been for the discovery of Hawk Sing's escape route, he might still be lurking around the back alleys wishing for an access method. As it is, Anderson slipped in through the shutters of the Spring Life offices with a blackened face and a grapple slung over his shoulder, while giving thanks to a crazy old man who, just days before, had robbed the company's entire payroll. The factory had reeked. The algae baths had all gone to rot. But not a thing moved in the gloom, and for that he was grateful. If the white shirts had posted guards within, Anderson held a hand over his mouth as he slipped down the main hall and then down into the manufacturing lines. The stink of rot and megadont dung thickened. Under the shadow of algae racks and the loom of the cutting presses, he examined the floor. This close to the algae tanks, the stink was horrific, as if a cow had died and rotted. The end stage of Yates's optimistic plan for a new energy future. Anderson knelt and pushed away desiccated algae strands from around one of the drains. He felt along the edges, seeking purchase. Lifted. The iron grate came up with a squeal. As quietly as he could, Anderson rolled the heavy grate away and set it with a clank on concrete. He lay down on the floor, prayed he wouldn't surprise a snake or scorpion, and plunged his arm down into the hole. His fingers scrabbled into the darkness, questing, straining deeper into the moist blackness. For a moment he feared it had slipped loose, had floated down the drain and through the sewers to King Rama's groundwater pumps. But then his fingers touched oilskin. He peeled it from the drain and drew it out, smiling. A code book for contingencies that he never seriously believed would come to pass. In the blackness of the offices, he dialed numbers and brought operators alert in Burma and India, sent secretaries scurrying for code strings unused since Finland. 2 days later, he stood on the floating island of Koh Angret, arranging the last details with strike team leaders in the Agrichan compound. The weaponry would arrive within days. The invasion teams would be assembling, and the money had already been shipped across. The gold and jade that would help generals change their loyalties and turn on their old friend, General Praja. But for now, with all the preparations completed, he returns to the city to find Emiko huddled at his door, miserable and covered with blood. As soon as she sees him, she lunges into his arms, sobbing. "What are you doing here?" he whispers, cradling her against him. He unlocks the door and urges her inside. Her skin burns. The blood is everywhere. Slashes mark her face and scar her arms. He shuts the door quickly. "What happened to you?" He pries her off him, tries to inspect her. She's a furnace of blood. But the wounds on her face and arms don't account for the sticking spattering that coats her. "Whose blood is this?" She shakes her head, begins sobbing again. "Let's get you cleaned up." He leads her into the bath, turns on cool water spray, puts her under it. She's shivering now, her eyes fever bright and panicked as she looks around. She looks half mad. He tries to peel off her half jacket to get rid of the bloody clothing, but her face twists in rage. "No!" She slashes at him with her hand and he jerks back, touching his cheek. "What the hell?" He stares at her, shocked. Christ, she was fast. He's hurting. His hand comes away bloody. "What the hell's wrong with you?" The panicked animal flicker leaves her eyes. She stares at him blankly, then seems to recover herself, becomes human. "I'm sorry," she whispers. "So sorry." She collapses, curls into a ball under the water. "So sorry, so sorry." She lapses into Japanese. Anderson squats down beside her, his own clothing becoming soaked in the spray. "Don't worry about it." He speaks gently. "Why don't you get out of these clothes? We'll get you something else, okay? Can you do that?" She nods dully, peels off her jacket, unwraps her fascine, huddles nude in the cool water. He leaves her in the spray, takes her bloody clothes and bundles them into a sheet and carries them down the stair out into the darkness. People all around. He ignores them, walking quickly into the shadows, carrying the clothes until he reaches a clong, tosses the bloody garments into the water, where the snakehead fish and baldy carp will consume them with an obsessive determination. The water roils, splashing as they tear at the blood food scent. By the time he's back in his apartment, Emiko is out of the shower, her black hair clinging to her face, a small, frightened creature. He goes to his medicine supplies, pours alcohol on the cuts, rubs antivirals in after. She doesn't cry out. Her nails are broken and ravaged. Bruises are blooming all across her body. But for all the blood she arrived with, she seems miraculously little damaged. "What happened?" he asks gently. She huddles against him. "I'm alone," she whispers. "There's no place for new people." Her shaking increases. He pulls her to him, feeling the burning heat of her skin. It's all right. Everything will change soon. It will be different. She shakes her head. No, I do not think so. A moment later, she is asleep, breathing steadily, her body finally releasing its tension into unconsciousness. Hair on my face. I'm going to tie it back. One moment. There's a reason I keep this handy. There. Much better. Now I won't be eating my own hair. Anderson wakes with a start. The crank fan has stopped, run out of jewels. He's covered with sweat. Beside him, Emiko moans and thrashes. A furnace. He rolls away and sits up. A slight breeze from the sea runs through the apartment. A relief. He stares out through mosquito nets to the blackness of the city. All the methane has been shut off for the night. Off in the distance, he can see a few glimmers in the floating sea communities of Thornbury, where they farm fish and float from one gene hack to the next in a perpetual seeking of survival. Someone pounds on his door, hammering insistently. Emiko's eyes snap open. She sits up. What is it? Someone's at the door. He tries to climb out of bed, but she grabs him, ragged nails digging into his arm. Don't open it, she whispers. Her skin is pale in the moonlight, her eyes wide and frightened. Please. The banging on his door increases, thudding, insistent. Why not? She pauses. It will be white shirts. What? Anderson's heart skips over. They followed you here? Why? What happened to you? She shakes her head miserably. He stares at her, wondering what sort of animal has invaded his life. What happened tonight, really? She doesn't answer. Her eyes remain locked on the door as the thumping continues. Anderson climbs out of bed and hurries to the door. Shouts, Just a second. I'm getting dressed. Anderson! The voice on the other side of the door is Carlyle's. Open up, it's important. Anderson turns and looks pointedly at Emiko. It's not white shirts. Now hide. No. No? For a moment, relief floods Emiko's features, but it disappears almost as quickly. She shakes her head. You are mistaken. Anderson glares at her. Was it white shirts that you tangled with? Is that where you got those cuts? She shakes her head miserably, but says nothing, just huddles in a small defensive ball. Jesus and Noah. Anderson goes and pulls clothes out of his chest, tosses them at her. Gifts that he bought her as tokens of his intoxication. You might be ready to go public, but I'm not ready to be ruined. Get dressed. Hide in my closet. She shakes her head again. Anderson tries to control his voice, to speak reasonably. It's as though he's talking to a block of wood. He kneels and takes her chin in his hands, turns her face to him. It's one of my business associates. It's not about you, but I still need you to hide until he goes away. Do you understand? You just need to hide for a little while. I want you to hide until he's gone. I don't want him to see us together. It might give him leverage. Slowly, her eyes focus. The look of hypnotized fatalism fades. Carlyle bangs on the door again. Her eyes flick to the door and back to Anderson's. It is white shirts, she whispers. There are many of them out there. I can hear them. She suddenly seems to collect herself. It will be white shirts. Hiding will do no good. Anderson fights the urge to scream at her. It's not white shirts. The banging continues on his door. Open the fuck up, Anderson! He calls back. Just a second! He pulls on a pair of pants, glaring at her. It's not the damned white shirts. Carlisle would slit his throat before he'd get into bed with white shirts. Carlisle's voice again echoes through the door. Hurry up, goddammit! Coming! He turns to her and orders her. Hide, now. Not a request anymore, but an order, driving at her genetic heritage and her training. Her body goes still. Then suddenly, she becomes animated, nodding. Yes, I will do as you say. Already she is dressing. Her stutter motion is fast, almost a blur. Her skin gleams as she pulls on a blouse and a pair of loose trousers. Suddenly she's shockingly fast, fluid in her movements, strangely and suddenly graceful. Hiding will do no good, she says, and turns and runs for the balcony. What are you doing? She turns back and smiles at him, seems about to say something, but instead she plunges over the balcony's edge and disappears into the blackness. Emiko! Anderson runs to the balcony. Below there's nothing. No person, no scream, no thud. No complaints from the street as she spatters across the ground. Nothing. Only emptiness. As though the night has swallowed her completely. The banging on the door comes again. Anderson's heart thuds in his chest. Where is she? How did she do that? It is unnatural. She was so fast, so determined at the end. 1 minute on the balcony, the next gone, over the edge. Anderson peers into the blackness. It's impossible that she jumped to another balcony, and yet, did she fall? Is she dead? The door crashes open. Anderson whirls. Carlisle spills into the apartment room, stumbling. Black Panthers pour in after Carlisle, slamming him aside. Combat armor gleams in the dimness. Military shadows. One of the soldiers grabs Anderson, whirls him about, and slams him into the wall. Hands search his body. When he struggles, they jam his face against the wall. More men pour in. Doors are being kicked open, splintering. Boots thud around him. An avalanche of men. Glass breaks. Dishes in his kitchen shattered. Anderson cranes his neck to see what is happening. A hand grabs him by the hair and slams his face back against the wall. Blood and pain in his mouth. He's bitten his tongue. What the hell are you doing? Do you know who I am? He chokes off as Carlisle is dumped on the floor beside him. He can see now that the man is tied. Bruises pepper his face. One eye is swollen shut. Black blood scabs on the orbit of bone. His brown hair is clotted with blood. Christ. The soldiers wrench Anderson's hands behind his back and bind him. They grab his hair and jerk him around. A soldier shouts at him, speaking so fast he can't understand. White eyes and spittle in his face as the man rages. Finally, Anderson catches the words, Kichi Kichi. Where's the wind-up? Where is it? Where? The Panthers tear through his apartment. Where? Rifle butts to smash open locks and doors. Huge black wind-up mastiffs scramble inside. Hey, hypocritical. Barking and slavering. Snuffing everywhere, howling as they catch their target scent. A man shouts at him, some kind of captain. What's going on? Anderson demands. I have friends, not many. Akarat strides through the door. Akarat! Anderson tries to turn, but the Panthers slam him back against the wall. What's going on? We have the same question for you. Akarat shouts orders in Thai to the men tossing Anderson's apartment. Anderson closes his eyes, desperately thankful that the Windup Girl didn't hide in the closet as he suggested. To be found with her caught out, one of the Panthers returns, carrying Anderson's spring gun. Akarat makes a face of distaste. Do you have a permit to be armed? We're starting a revolution and you're asking about permits? Akarat nods to his men. Anderson slams back against the wall. Pain explodes in his skull. The room dims and his knees buckle. He staggers barely to keep his feet. What the hell's going on? Akarat motions for the pistol. Takes it, pumps it idly. The heavy, dull thing massive in his fist. Where is the Windup Girl? Anderson spits blood. Why do you care? You're not a white shirt or Grahamite. The Panthers slam Anderson against the wall again. Colored dots swim in Anderson's vision. Where did the Windup come from? Akarat asked. She's Japanese. From Kyoto, I think. Akarat fits the pistol to Anderson's head. How did you get her into the country? What? Akarat strikes him with the butt of the pistol. The world darkens. Water gushes onto his face. Anderson gasps and sputters. He's sitting on the floor. Akarat presses the spring gun to Anderson's throat, pushing him to climb up to his feet, then to teeter onto his toes. Anderson gags at the pressure. How did you get the Windup into the country? Akarat repeats. Sweat and blood sting Anderson's eyes. He blinks and shakes his head. I didn't get her in. He spits blood again. She was a Japanese discard. How would I get my hands on a Windup? Akarat smiles, says something to his men. A military Windup is a Japanese discard? He shakes his head. I think not. He slams the pistol butt into Anderson's ribs. Once, twice. Each side cracking. Anderson yowls and doubles over, coughing and cringing away. Akarat drags him upright. Why would a military Windup be in our city of divine beings? She's not military, Anderson protests. She's just a secretary. Akarat's expression doesn't change. He spins Anderson around and forces his face against the wall, grinding bones. Anderson thinks his jaw is broken. He feels hands prying his fingers apart. Anderson tries to make a fist, whimpering, knowing what is coming, but Akarat's hands are strong, prying them open. Anderson experiences a moment of tingling helplessness. His finger twists, and Akarat's grip snaps. Anderson howls into the wall as Akarat supports him. When he's done whimpering and shaking, Akarat grabs him by the hair and pulls his head back so that they can look into one another's eyes. Akarat's voice is steady. She is military. She is a killer. And you're the one who introduced her to the Sonda Chalpreya. Where is she now? A killer? Anderson shakes his head, trying to think straight. But she's nothing. A Mishimoto discard. Japanese trash. The environment ministry is right about one thing. You Agrigen animals can't be trusted. You call the Windup a simple pleasure toy, and so conveniently introduce your assassin to the Queen's protector. He leans close, eyes full of rage. You might as well have killed royalty. That's impossible. Anderson doesn't even try to keep the hysteria from his voice. His broken finger throbs. Blood fills his mouth again. She's just a piece of trash. She couldn't do anything like that. You have to believe me. She killed 3 men and their bodyguards. 8 trained men. The proof is unassailable. Unbidden, he remembers Emiko huddled on his doorstep, soaked in blood. 8 men? Remembers her disappearing over the balcony, plunging into darkness like some kind of spirit creature. What if they're right? There's got to be another explanation. She's goddamn wind-up. All they do is obey. Emiko, in bed, huddled, sobbing, her body torn and scratched. Anderson takes a breath, tries to control his voice. Please, you have to believe me. We would never jeopardize so much. Agrigent doesn't benefit from the Samdat Shalprea's death. Nobody does. This plays right into the Environment Ministry's hands. We have too much to gain from a good relationship. And yet you introduced the killer to him. But it's insane. How would anyone get a military wind-up here and keep it under wraps? That wind-up has been around for years and years. Ask around, you'll see. She bribed her way with the white shirts, her papasan that had that show running for ages. He's babbling, but he can see Akarat listening now. The cold rage is gone from the man's eyes. Now there's consideration. Anderson spits blood, looks Akarat in the eye. Yes, I introduced that creature, but it was only because she was a novelty. Everyone knows his reputation. He flinches as a new surge of anger twists Akarat's face. Please, listen to me. Investigate this. If you investigate, you'll find out it wasn't us. There has to be another explanation. We had no idea. He breaks off tiredly. Just investigate. We cannot. The Environment Ministry has the case. What? Anderson can't hide his surprise. By what authority? The wind-up makes it a case for their ministry. She is an invasive. And you don't think I'm the one behind, and you think I'm the one behind it? When those bastards are controlling the investigation? Anderson works through the implications, hunting for reasons, excuses, anything to buy time. You can't trust them. Pracha and his people. He pauses. Pracha would set us up. He'd do it in a second. Maybe he's caught wind of our plans. He could be moving against us right now, using this as a cover. If he knew the Samdat Shalprea was against him, our plans were secret, Akarat says. Nothing secret. Not on the scale we're working. One of the generals could have leaked to their old friend, and now he's just assassinated 3 of ours, and we're pointing fingers at each other. Akarat considers. Anderson waits, breath held. Finally, Akarat shakes his head. No. Pracha would never attack royalty. He is garbage, but still, he is Thai. But it wasn't me either. He looks down at Carlyle. It wasn't us. There has to be another explanation. He starts to cough with panic, a cough that becomes an uncontrolled spasm. At last it stops. His ribs ache. He spits blood and wonders if his lung is punctured from the beating. He looks up at Akarat, trying to control his words, to make them count, to sound reasonable. There must be some way to find out what really happened to the Samdat Shalprea. Some connection, something. A panther leans forward and whispers in Akarat's ear. Anderson thinks he recognizes him from the party on the barge. One of the Samdat Shalprea's men. The hard one, with the feral face and the still eyes. He whispers more words. Akarat nods sharply. Cut. motions to his men to push Anderson and Carlisle into the next room. All right, Kuhn Anderson, we will see what we can learn. They shove him down on the floor beside Carlisle. Make yourself comfortable, Akarat says. I've given my man 12 hours to investigate. You had better pray, whatever Graham might God you worship, that your story is confirmed. Anderson feels a surge of hope. Find out everything you can. You'll see it wasn't less. You'll see. He sucks on his split lip. That wind-up isn't anything other than a Japanese toy. Someone else is responsible for this. The white shirts are just trying to get us to go after one another. 10 to 1 says it's the white shirts moving on us all. We will see. Anderson lets his head loll back against the wall, adrenaline and nervous energy firing under his skin. His hand throbs. The broken finger dangles useless. Time. He's bought time. Now it's just a matter of waiting, or trying to find the next finger hold to survival. He coughs again, wincing at the pain in his ribs. Behind him, Carlisle groans, but doesn't wake up. Anderson coughs again and stares at the wall, collecting himself for the next round of conflict with Akarat. But even as he considers the many angles, trying to understand what has caused this rapid change in circumstance, another image keeps intruding. The sight of the Windup Girl running for the balcony and plunging into the darkness, faster than anything he has ever seen. A wraith of movement and feral grace, fast and smooth, and at speed, terrifyingly beautiful. Need a drink. Where are we at? Might need more drink. Okay. Smoke billows around Kanya. 4 more bodies discovered, in addition to the ones they already found in the hospitals. The plague is mutating more quickly than she expected. Jibu Sen hinted that it might, but the counting of bodies fills her with a foreboding. Pai moves along the edges of a fish pond. They've thrown lye and chlorine into the pond. Huge sacks. Clouds of acrid scent waft across everyone, making them cough. The stench of fear. She remembers other ponds filled and people huddled while the white shirts ranged through the village, burning, burning, burning. She closes her eyes. How she hated the white shirts then. And so, when the local Zhao Por found her intelligent and driven, he sent her to the capital with instructions to volunteer with the white shirts, to work for them, to integrate herself. A country godfather working in concert with the enemies of the white shirts, seeking revenge for the usurpation of power. Dozens of other children went south to beg on the ministry's doors, and all of them with the same instructions. For the ones she arrived with, she is the only one who rose so high. But there are others, she knows. Others like her, seeded throughout, other embittered, loyal children. I forgive you, JD murmurs. Kanya shakes her head and ignores him, waves to Pai that the other pawns are ready to be buried. If they are lucky, the village will cease to exist entirely. Her men work quickly, eager to be gone. They all have masks and suits, but in the relentless heats, these shields are more torture than protection. More clouds of acrid smoke. The villagers are crying. The girl, Mai, stares at Kanya, her expression flat. A formative moment for the child. This memory will lodge like a fishbone in the throat. She will never be free of it. Kanya's heart goes out to her. If only you could understand. But it is impossible for one so small to comprehend the gray brutalities of life. If only I could have understood. Captain Kanya! She turns. The man is coming across the dikes, stumbling in the mud of the paddies, stumbling through jewel green rice shoots. Pai looks up with interest, but Kanya waves him away. The messenger arrives breathless. Buddha smiles on you and the ministry. He waits expectantly. Now, Kanya stares at him, looks at the burning village. You want me now? The young boy looks around nervously, surprised at her response. Kanya waves impatiently. Tell me again. Now. Buddha smiles on you and the ministry. All roads start at the heart of Krungthep. All roads. Kanya grimaces and calls to her lieutenant. Pai, I must go. Now. He masters his surprise as he comes over to her. Kanya nods. It's unavoidable. The waves of the flaming bamboo house. She waves at the flaming bamboo houses. Finish up here. What about the villagers? Keep them rope here. Send food. If no one else sickens this week, we are likely finished. You think we could be so lucky? Kanya makes herself smile, thinking how unnatural it is to reassure someone with Pai's experience. We can hope. She waves at the boy. Take me then. She glances at Pai. Meet me at the ministry when you have finished here. We have one more place left to burn. The Ferrang factory. Kanyomu smiles at his eagerness. We cannot let the source go uncleansed. Is that not our job? You are a new tiger, Pai exclaims. He claps her on the back before he remembers his station and wise apology for his forwardness, then hurries back to the destruction of the village. A new tiger, JD mutters beside her. How very nice for you. It's your own fault. You trained them to need a radical. And so they choose you? Kanya sighs. If you carry a burning torch, apparently it is enough. JD laughs at that.
Jungle Book reference.
Seems so. A king green scooter is waiting for her on the far side of the dikes. The boy climbs on and waits for her to perch behind, and then they are off through the city streets, weaving around megadons and bicycles. Their little air horn blares. The city blurs past. Fish sellers, cloth merchants, amulet men with their frossobes, with which JD used to make so much fun of, and which Kanya secretly keeps herself, close to her heart on a small chain. Currying favor with too many gods, JD observed when she touched it before leaving the village. She ignored his mockery and still whispered prayers to Frossobe, hoping for protection that she knew she didn't deserve. The scooter slows to a stop, and she hops down. The gold filigree of the city pillar shrine gleams in the dawn. All around, women sell marigolds for offerings. The chanting of monks carries over the whitewashed walls, along with the music of con dances. The boy is gone before she has a chance to thank him. Just another of the many who owe favors to Akarat. Likely the scooter is a gift from the man, and loyalty the price of it. And what do you get, dear Kanya? JD asks. You know, Kanya mutters. I get what I swore I would get. And do you still desire it? She doesn't answer him, steps over the barrier door to the shrine's interior. Even at dawn, the shrine is crowded with worshippers. People crouched before the Buddha statues at the shrine of Fraseub, second only to the one at the ministry. The grounds bustle with people making offerings of flowers and fruit, shaking out their fortunes with divining sticks, and over it all, the monks chant, guarding the city with their prayers and amulets in the saisen that stretches from the shrine to the dikes and pumps. The sacred thread wavers in the grey light, held aloft on poles where it crosses thoroughfares, stretching miles from this blessed hub to the pumps, and then circling the seawalls. The monks' chanting is a steady drone, keeping the city of divine beings safe from the swelling waves. Kanya buys her own incense and food offering, takes it into the cool confines of the pillar shrine. Down the marble steps, she kneels before the old city pillar of the sacked Ayutthaya and the larger one of Bangkok, the place where all miles are marked from, the heart of Krung Thep, and the home of the spirits that protect it. As she stands in the shrine's doorway and looks out toward the dikes, she can see the rise of the levees. It is obvious that they are in the depth of a bathtub. They are exposed on all sides. This shrine, she lights her incense. This shrine, she lights her incense and pays her respects. Don't you feel like a hypocrite coming here, of all places, at trade swim? Shut up, JD. JD kneels beside her. Well, at least you're giving some good fruit. Shut up. She wants to pray, but with JD bothering her, it's useless. After another minute, she gives up and goes back outside to the increasing morning light and heat. Narong is there, leaning against a post, watching the cone dances. The drums beat and the dancers go through their stylized turns, their voices raised high and stark, competing with the drone of the ranked monks across the courtyard. Kanya joins them. Narong holds up a hand and waits until they're done. She masters her irritation and finds a seat, watching as the story of Rama is played out. Finally, Narong nods, satisfied. It's good, isn't it? He tilts his head towards the pillar shrine. Have you made your offerings? You care? Other white shirts cluster around the compound, making their offerings, asking for promotions to better paying assignments, asking for success in their investigations, asking for protection from the diseases that they run up against every day. But it's nature. This is a shrine for the Environment Ministry, almost as important as the Temple of Fraseub, the biodiversity martyr. It makes her nervous to speak with Narong in front of them all, but he appears entirely unconcerned. We all love the city, he says. Not even Akarat will fail to defend it. Kanya makes a face. What do you want from me? So impatient. Let's walk. She scowls. Narong seems unhurried, and yet he has summoned her as if it is an emergency. She tamps at her fury and mutters, Do you know what you have interrupted? Tell me as we walk. I have a village with 5 dead, and we still haven't isolated the cause. He glances over, interested. A new symbiosis. He guides her out of the compound, past marigold cellars, walking onward. You don't know. She masters her frustration. But you're delaying me from my work, and though it may please you to make me run like a dog when you call, we have a problem. Narong interrupts. And though you think your village is important, it is nothing in comparison to this. There has been a death, a very prominent one. We need your help in the investigation. She laughs. I'm not the police. It's not a police matter. There was a wind-up involved. She stopped short. A what? The killer. We believe it is an invasive, a military wind-up. Kichi. How is that possible? It is something we are trying to understand. Narong looks at her seriously. And we cannot ask the questions because General Prasha has taken control of the investigation, claiming jurisdiction because the wind-up is an interdictated creature, as if it were a Cheshire or a yellow card. He laughs bitterly. We are blocked entirely. You will investigate on our behalf. That's difficult. It's not my investigation. Pracha will not. He trusts you. Trusting me to do my job and allowing me to meddle are two different things. She shrugs and turns away. It's impossible. No. Narang grabs her and yanks her back. This is vital. We must know the details. Kanya whirs, throws Narang's hand off her shoulder. Why? What is so important about this? People die all over Bangkok every day. We find bodies faster than we can shovel them into the methane composters. What's so important about this one that you have to cross the general? Narang pulls her close. It's the Somdet Shalbrea. We have lost her Royal Majesty's protector. Kanya's knees buckle. Narang drags her upright. Keeps talking, fiercely, insistent. Politics have become uglier since I started in this game. He has a smile on his face, but now Kanya sees the rage banked below. You're a good girl, Kanya. We have always held our part of the bargain. This is why you are here. I know this is difficult. You have loyalty to your superiors in the Environment Ministry as well. You pray to Frasiu. This is good. It is right for you. But we require your help. Even if you have no taste for Akara anymore, the palace requires it. What do you want? We need to know if this was Pracha's doing. He has been quick to take over the investigation. We must know if it was he who drove the knife. Your patron and the safety of the palace depends on this. It is possible that Pracha wishes to hide something. It could be some of his December 12 elements striking against us. It's not possible. It is too convenient. We have been locked out entirely because it is a wind-up who did the killing. Narang's voice cracks with a sudden intensity. He must know if the wind-up was planted by your ministry. He passes her a bundle of cash. Kanya stares at the amount, shocked. Bribe anyone who gets in your way, he says. She shakes off her paralysis, takes the money and stuffs it into her pockets. He touches her gently. I'm very sorry, Kanya. You're all I have. I depend on you for our enemies, to find our enemies and root them out. The heat of a plungent shower in the middle of the day is stifling. Investigators clog the dingy rooms of the club, adding to the swelter. It is a sick place to die, a place of hunger and desperation and appetites unfulfilled. Palace staffers crowd in the halls, watching, conferring, preparing to collect the Somdet Shalprea's body for placement in his funeral urn, waiting as Pracha's people investigate. Anxiety and anger hang in the air, politeness filed to an exquisite edge in this most humiliating and frightening moment. The rooms have the feeling of the monsoon just about to break, electric with energy fraught with the unknown darkness of roiling clouds. The first body lies on the floor outside an old farang. Surreal and alien, there is little physical damage to him, except the bruising where his throat was crushed, the livid torture that was done to his windpipe. He sprawls beside the bar with the mottled look of a corpse raised from the river. Some gangster bit of fish bait. The old man stares at her with wide blue eyes, two dead seas. Kanya studies the damage without speaking, then allows Jinder Praksha's secretary to lead her to the interior rooms. She gasps. Blood stains everything. Great swirls of it splatter the walls and drool across the floors. Bodies lie in tangled heaps, and among them lies the Samdat Shalpreya, his throat not smashed, as was the old farang, but literally torn out, as though a tiger has fed upon him. His bodyguards lie dead, one with a spring gun blade buried in his eye socket, the other still clutching his own spring gun, but peppered with blades. Try, Kanya murmurs. She hesitates, uncertain of what to do in the presence of this sordid death. Ivory beetles tangle in the bloody froth. They skitter and scatter through it all, making tracks in the coagulant. Pracha is in the room, conferring with his subordinate. He looks up at her gasp of dismay. The others have their own looks of shock, anxiety, and embarrassment flickering across their faces. The thought that Pracha could arrange such a killing fills Kanya with sickness. The Samdat Shalpreya was no friend of the Environment Ministry, but the enormity of the act makes her ill. It is one thing to plot coups and counter-coups, another to reach inside the palace. She feels like a bamboo leaf drowning in blood-water currents. So we all go, she tells herself. Even the richest and most powerful are only meat for Cheshires in the end. We are all nothing but walking corpses, and to forget it is folly. Meditate on the nature of corpses and you will see this. And yet still she is unnerved, almost panicked by the sight of a near god's mortality before her. What have you done, General? It is too horrifying to consider. The flood currents threaten to suck her underneath. Kanya? Prasha waves her over. She searches the general face for signs that he carries the guilt for the act. But Patra seems only puzzled. What are you doing here? She has words prepared, excuses, but they fail her with the crown protector and his retinue strewn about the room. Pracha's eyes follow her gaze to the protector's body. His voice softens. He touches her gently on the arm. Come, this is too much. Guides her out. Pracha shakes his head. You've heard already. He sighs. By the end of the day, it'll be all over the city. Kanya finds her voice, spills her lie, pretending to the role that Narong has given her. I didn't think it could be true. Worse than that, Prasha shakes his head grimly. It was a wind-up that did it. Kanya forces herself to show surprise. She glances back at the bloodshed. A wind-up? Just one? Her eyes trace along the peppering of spring blades embedded in the walls. She recognizes one of the bodies as a trade minister official, the son of a secondary patriarch, another from a Chaozu manufacturing plant, a man making his way in the business press, all of them faces from the whisper sheets, all of them great tigers. It's awful. It doesn't seem possible, does it? 6 bodyguards, 3 men additionally, and only a single windup, if we believe the witnesses. Prasha shakes his head. Even symbiosis kills more cleanly. His Eminence, the Samdat Shalpreya's neck has been ripped entirely away, breaking it, snapping and tearing so that though the spine seems attached still, it acts as a hinge rather than a support. It looks like a demon tore him open. A wild animal, anyway. It's the sort of thing military gene hack would do. We've seen this sort of activity in the North, where the... Ah, shit. Where was my spot? Oh, here we go. We've seen this sort of activity in the North, where the Vietnamese operate. They use Japanese wind-up as scouts and shock troops. We're lucky they don't have many. He looks seriously at Kanya. It will go hard on us. Trade will say that we failed in this, that we allowed this animal into the country, that they will try to take advantage, make a pretext out of it to seize more power. His expression turns bleak. We have to find out why this wind-up was here. If Akarat has set us up, has used the Protector as a pawn to seize power. He would never. Prachan makes a face of dismissal. Politics is ugly. Never doubt what small men will do for great power. We think Akarat was here before. Some of the staff seem to recognize his image, seem to recall. He shrugs. But of course, everyone is afraid. No one wants to admit too much. It looks as if Akarat and some of his Farang trader friends brought the Samba Shalprea to the Hichi. Is he playing me? Does he know that I work for Akarat? Kanya stifles her fears. If he knew, he would never have promoted me to JD's position. JD whispers in her ear, "You never know. A snake in its nest is better than a snake slithering through the jungle. This way, he always knows exactly where you are." I need you to go to the records department, Pracha says. We don't want information to conveniently disappear. Do you understand? Trade has its own agents amongst us. Pull everything you find and bring it to me. Find out how she lived here and survived. As soon as word gets out, there will be a cover-up. Men will lie. Permit records will disappear. Someone was allowing the wind-up to exist against our laws. The ministry is vulnerable on this. Someone took bribes. Someone allowed the wind-up to live here. I want to know who, and I want to know if they are on Akarat's payroll. Why me? Prasha smiles sadly. JD is the only one I would trust more. He's setting you up, JD comments. If he wants to blame this on trade, you are the perfect tool. The mole in the ministry. There is no guile in Pracha's face, but he is a clever man. How much does he know? Find the information for me, Pracha says. Bring it to me and speak to no one of this. I will do it, she says. Inside, though, she wonders if the records even exist anymore. So many ways to profit. A cover-up would have already been effected. If it is truly a murder plot against the Protector, the payoffs would go to all levels. She shivers, wonders who would do such a thing. Political killings are one thing. To touch the palace in this way, rage and frustration threaten to overwhelm her. She forces it down. What do we know of the wind-up so far? She claimed to be a Japanese discard. The girls here say she has been in the place for years. Kanya makes a face of distaste. It's difficult to believe that anyone would soil. She breaks off, finding herself on the verge of scorning the Sanjat Shalprea. Sick feelings of confusion and sadness overwhelm her. She masks her discomfort by asking another question. How did the Protector come to be here? All we know is that he was accompanied by Akarat's ilk. You question Akarat. If we could find him. He's missing. You're surprised? Akarat is always good at protecting himself. That's why he's managed to survive for so many years. Prasha grimaces. He may as well be a Cheshire. Nothing ever touches him. Prasha looks at her seriously. We must find who allowed this wind-up creature to live here for so long, how it got into the city, how the assassination was arranged. We are blind in this, and when we are blind, we are vulnerable. This news will make everything unstable. Kanya weighs. I will do everything I can, even if JD peers over her shoulder and laughs at her. I may need more information than this to track down those responsible. You have enough to start. Find where this wind-up came from. Who took the bribes? This is what I must know. And Akarat and these Farang who introduced the wind-up to the Protector? Pracha smiles slightly. I will attend to it. But, Kanya, it is understandable that you wish to do more. We all care for the well-being of the palace and the kingdom, but we must secure and protect the information we have about the wind-up creature. Kanya controls her response. Yes, of course. I will locate the information on the bribes. She pauses delicately. Will someone be required to demonstrate their regrets as well? Pracha makes a face. A little harmless bribe income is one thing. It is not a rich year for the ministry, but this, he shakes his head. I remember when we were respected. Kanya murmurs. Pracha glances at her. Do you? I thought that had ended by the time you came to us. He sighs. Don't worry. This will not be a cover-up. Atonements will be made. I will ensure it personally. Do not doubt my commitment to the kingdom or Her Royal Majesty the Queen. The guilty will be punished. Kanya studies the Protector's body and the dingy room where he met his end. A wind-up. A whore and a wind-up. She tries to contain her sickness at the thought. A wind-up that someone would try to... She shakes her head. An ugly affair. A destabilizing move. And now some young men will have to pay for it. Whoever took the bribes and flowing shit. Perhaps other. On the street, Kanya flags down a cycle rickshaw from the corner of her eye. She catches a glimpse of palace panthers formed in ranks at the door. A crowd is gathering, watching with interest. In a few more hours, and news will be all over the city. The Environment Ministry, as quickly as you can. She waves Akarat's bribe at the rickshaw man, encouraging greater effort. But even as she does, she wonders on whose behalf she waves it. Okay. I think I need to call it a little bit early.
Okay. 20 minutes shy. That's a good stopping point.
Yep.
Alrighty, folks. Thanks for watching. This was Windup Girl. Next week we'll probably be the end of it. Sorry about that. That was a really drawn-out yawn. It'll probably be the end of it next week, so be sure to stop back in where we see the conclusion. And wow, things ramped up to 20 this time.
They sure did.
Don't fist the military robots, everybody. They'll go crazy.
Well, just don't torture a person who, well, actually they didn't know, but she was definitely much more capable than all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're all trained soldiers and fighters or whatever. And she dismembered them all. And probably Kanika too.
Now they're dead.
Now they're dead. And to be fair, they deserved it. They really did. That was one scene that I was satisfied with.
Yep, they had what was coming to them. Alright, well thanks for watching. You all have a great night, and we'll be back tomorrow for some Dungeons and Dragons.